Thank you. Let me now bring in political analyst Rich Rubino, author of The Great American Political Trivia Challenge. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for taking the time. Hunter Biden didn't mince words in this 3-hour interview. Here is a trivia question for you. What was the strategy here? I mean, was there a bigger picture for him or end game to this kind of unleashing?
I don't think so. I don't think that Hunter Biden wants to run for office. I don't think that he's necessarily supporting someone who would run in 2028. I think that this is just the acrimony, really the bent-up acrimony, if you will, that the Biden family has really had with the Democratic establishment. It's kind of ironic because many view Joe Biden, someone who was literally first elected to the Senate the same day Richard Nixon was reelected back in 1972, as kind of the archetype of the political establishment. But this is something where he really goes after the establishment, and he believes that the establishment, led by many who were former Obama administration aides, really did not support President Biden the way they thought that he potentially should. And it's very interesting. The thing that I find very interesting, at one point he goes after and says, basically, why do a bunch of Hollywood people know that a bunch of voters in South Carolina and African Americans in South Carolina, which helped to get him elected back in 2020, did not know? So it was really somebody who I think was part of the establishment taking on the establishment.
What did you make about his claims that his dad had been given Ambien to help him sleep amid all the travel leading up to the disastrous debate? It was the first time anybody within President Biden's inner circle had mentioned that. How significant was that against the backdrop of the ongoing investigation into his dad's mental acuity?
Well, it is certainly true that President Biden had traveled around the world, although he did have some days after that. It wasn't like he just went around the world and then he came back. The day after. He did have a little bit of time to rest, but whether that can still be in your system, I don't know. But it's something you would think that potentially at the time.
What was it, 9 days?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. It did not happen the next day. You would think it would be something that at the time, either Joe Biden or one of Joe Biden's coefficients, one of Joe Biden's aides, would have come out and said that yes, he was on Ambien, but essentially that was the reason why he had that poor performance in that June debate.
I know he's slated to do more sit-down podcast interviews soon, so we'll see what more he has left to share. Before I let you go, let me switch gears with you real quick and ask you about this breaking news coming down within the last couple minutes from the Department of Justice in regards to the Epstein files. I don't know if you've seen this, but Attorney General Pam Bondi has officially directed the DOJ to communicate with Ghislaine Maxwell's attorney and meet with her in the coming days if she's willing over what she knows about anybody who's committed crimes against victims. How significant is this, and do you think she's going to talk?
I think it's very significant. I think that she will want some sort of a deal where she will get immunity. I think that she's supposedly told other prisoners that she thinks she's going to be out well before the 20 years. She has a 20-year sentence. I think she believes she'll be out of prison a lot earlier. I think that she would. I think my guess is that she would testify. I think Alan Dershowitz, the attorney, has suggested that she potentially would testify. So I think that that's probably going to. I think that's something that very possibly could happen.
Well, and the other interesting part of this statement that just came down from Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche is that, the DOJ says up until now, no administration on behalf of the department had inquired about her willingness to meet with the government. How is that possible? And why didn't the Biden administration push for this, you think?
Yeah, and the Biden administration it was really not necessarily on their radar what was going on with certainly the Jeffrey Epstein imbroglio. But it'll be very interesting to see whether she does indeed testify. But I think my guess is that she probably will. But obviously, this was something that really was off their radar, I think.
Okay, well, this just came down within the last 5 minutes or so. So thanks for giving us your 2 cents there as well. Rich Rubino, a pleasure to have you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, see you next time. Okay. Nick's here.